2 back-to-back trips. First, let's talk about Nashville. Went to the great city of Nashville, home of hot chicken. Well, watch my younger Nashville hot chicken. Thank you. Yeah. Watch my younger son play. Just want to share that, we knocked off the number 1 AA team in the country last year. So thank you. Appreciate the props on that. While I was down in Nashville, I took the opportunity to share with many people last week's show, which was so fantastic. I know you got a lot of things to talk about, Jared, up in Columbus, but, the takeaways from the guys in Finland and Sweden, we're not going to put the scoreboard on until they're 11. We're not going to play organized level hockey until 16U. Fascinating stuff. Stunned faces, mouths open. Good stuff. Then I pivoted and took my older son to Colorado State, where he's a student. He's going to play some ACHA hockey up there. They've got their battle camp this weekend. And in between, Bluetooth trailer tires along the way just for fun. So, I can honestly say I have a newfound appreciation for breaking down on the side of the highway.
Did you get out there and change the tires yourself, or did you call AAA?
No, I did. I changed it myself, and thank you. I love the sport. My son got to experience it on the way out, and then just for fun, my wife flew in, helped get my son set up, and then she rode back with me. So when we hit the second blown tire, I said, "Well, I get to join the party." So she was right there. She was a witness, saw me actually change the tire. But I know you got a ton of stuff to unpack, and I know we got a lot of stuff in the show to talk about. Not only do we have a special guest, so we're back to triad version here in the studio, but you're on the backside of Jedi status. I'm going to call it Jedi status. You completed level 5. Jared's Jedi. Congratulations.
Well, we're almost finished. I have to come back and evaluate my team and then put together 10 practice plans on the 2 or 3 items that I've evaluated my team on.
But I saw up on your computer, you have your sheet, you're drawing stuff out. You're way ahead.
Well, I like to be prepared.
You do.
Yeah. So sounds like you were prepared, though. You had extra tires.
I did. So thank goodness. Now I did buy some tires along the way, but but I want to hear all about Columbus and level 5. But what were some of the takeaways for you? Give us a little snippet of, if you could pick 1 or 2 things at the top of your list. What do you think it was?
Well, I think you started off when you talked about our friends from Finland and Sweden and just that new perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think beyond our first conversation with them on Thursday, each of them led breakouts for the entire class, and it went even deeper. And so there's some pretty interesting numbers, not just for hockey but youth sports in general, that talk about the correlation between what they're doing and the success rate. I mean, don't forget Sweden for the U8, for the World Juniors, up until I think 2 years ago, was undefeated in preliminary round robin.
Wow.
And so I think,
do you speak Swedish now?
No, but I eat Swedish meatballs. I think the biggest thing is we really focused on crafting practice that's not only fun, to Bob Mancini's point when we interviewed him,
love it,
but drives decision-making. It's constraint led, and we're not given the answers. So, as coaches, and we haven't even introduced our guest yet, but I know he knows all about this next phrase. When you think about drill kill, that's not a bad thing. What's a bad thing is trying to overcorrect drill kill without letting the players kind of experience that and figure it out on their own. And so that was a huge focus point that I took away. I think the other piece is understanding that from the highest level, there were several NHL coaches that we had a chance to interact with and talk with.
I saw Mike Sullivan was up there.
Yeah, I can call him Sully now.
Nice.
From Mike Sullivan on down. The theme was, even their practices are fun with deliberate, with purpose. There's some notes that I took that I'm going to share today as we embark on our conversation with our guest here. But it was an awesome opportunity to do a lot of self-reflection as a coach. And then also to understand that the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to create an environment where every time your team's on the ice, every time your players are on the ice, they're trying to be creative, get better, work as a team. But really, that the big piece is decision making. And I summed it up when I was talking with Mike Richards, who was there with me. You know, the best hockey players are the ones that have been able to take their skill and then transition it to faster decision making. And so everything that I took from this, and I went back and looked at a lot of the practices that we've run, a lot of the practices that we're going to run. You know, how can we tweak these, create more constraints, less direction, and really help these players ascend. So, you know, that's a great segue. I think we talk about player ascension, because for those of you watching us on YouTube here, you'll see that we've got a center on this on the wing here.
I love it, and I'm a lefty, so yeah, I'm left wing over here, Chris.
Yeah, there you go. So joining us today is Chris Durso. Not only is he the head coach for the Afton Central State's 16U team this year.
I see your hat.
Yep. Well, you know, I always got to pay tribute. He's also president of Missouri Hockey. And we've got something called a season about ready to start here. So we thought it would be awesome if Chris could join us and really preview the season and really talk a lot about upcoming changes, player development, coaching development. We talked about officials at level 5 too, which there's some statistics that I want to throw out there. But really, you know, Chris, thank you for joining us, and give us a little bit of what have you been up to this summer so far?
I feel like I've been at the rink every day since probably mid-July. So that's been fun, but took a little bit of a break, went on vacation, went to Spain with my wife. So that was nice to get away a little bit, you know, and then tending to the day job, of course.
Yes, that's right. You know, I also, you know, if you're following Coach Durso on Instagram, you notice he has these training camps, and it looks like you had like a building, you know, your boys building a card castles. Tell me a little bit about that before we get into the meat of the season.
I think every season since I've been a head coach, I don't know, for the last 8 years or so, I've done training camps with my teams, just to try to do some team building, getting to know each other. The card building thing was just a break them up into small groups. I gave them a deck of cards, a pair of scissors, and a roll of tape, and they have to build the tallest structure. So it was just a little problem solving team building.
Did the goalie led team, did they win?
There were 2 goalie led teams, and I don't think either one of them won.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We've got a lot of cool topics to talk about, and this isn't just for players and coaches. We're hoping parents and fans of the game are listening in. You know, you brought a stack full of good statistics, which I think are going to drive some great topics and some content. And so,
love a good stat.
Yeah. So, where do you want to start, Chris? I mean, you drive the bus. You're the guest today.
Sure. I think you know, we have a lot of good things happening within Missouri hockey, and I think one of the biggest things is our growth over the last 10 years, and that's a testament to all the people at the grassroots level. They're just doing great things, growing their clubs. It helped that the Blues won the Stanley Cup. It hurt during the next year. There was the COVID year, so that kind of took us back. But I think over the last 10 years, we've grown from about 6,600 players to more than 11, or players and coaches to more than 11,500, and that's you know, 10 years. That puts a lot of stress, I think, on ice rinks, and so I think like that's probably the next biggest issue we have.
I was looking at that, Chris, when you sent some of the details of topics and things you were going to talk about. So I did my own stats, 73% growth over the last 11 years. That is amazing. And then you so definitely pointed out, then that creates a rink challenge, right? So you have all these new players that have come in. You've done a great job promoting the game that we all love. And we've experienced the growth, and now we need to find a place for these kids to play. Now, fortunately, we have some new sheets on the near horizon that are coming up. But I remember last year, and I'm sure we could dig into this deep, of high school hockey games, you know, with start times at 10:15 at night and 10:30 in some cases. And that's really trying to find a way to accommodate everybody. But outstanding job. I mean, 73% growth is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my job. That's, you know, everybody that's involved, I think, does a great job promoting the game, keeping kids in the game longer. We haven't seen as much of a drop off. We used to see the drop off, right around the time kids started body checking and things. And I think we've done a better job keeping kids into their midget years as an affiliate. So that's good.
Let's talk about midget hockey for a second, because, and Drew and I, having been working together, as we've mentioned on this pod, I think before, on the board for the Rockets, I really had a focal point, and I can tell you Mike Richards, who's the director of hockey there, has also had a focal point of creating a midget destination. Afton, aside from the Central States charters that they have, has done another tremendous job of building up a culture to continue that hockey past 14U. I always thought it was interesting, though, when we talk about the term aging out at 14U, right when these kids are, many of them are just starting to get it. As president of Missouri Hockey, what are some things that you feel the organization can be doing, or some of the messages we should be getting out, so that's not just, beer league and waiting teams ready to go? I mean, and I'm speaking of the, kind of the A level midget, because some organizations really put an emphasis on it, and it really continues that developmental arc. And some, I think, it's more parent led, which is not a bad thing, but I don't think every organization treats it the same way.
Yeah. So I think the thing that I always say is Missouri hockey is for everyone, and it's hockey for life. So we have, programs within our affiliate that are all the way up through adult. So, and we have disabled programs and other programming out there with people doing a wonderful job on all those programs. And I think, one of the things that we do is, I think this is probably new sports generally, though, is we tend to, the kids that hit puberty quicker tend to get selected for the better teams earlier on. And maybe some of the kids that would continue playing lose hope because of that, because they don't make the top team in town or whatever. Yeah. And so I think as a community, we have to educate people more, because you look beyond that. I think one of the things you probably talked about in your level 5 is that, the athletic maturity happens at, 22, 23 years old. And so if you're quitting at 14, there's, you're closer to when you started
than you are the end.
And yep. I think, one of the things that wasn't true when I was growing up is that, there's 500 ACHA college hockey programs now.
Yep.
And so I think giving kids and families that information hopefully leads them to stay in the game longer. And I think one of the things that USA Hockey always talks about is, keeping more kids in the game for a longer period of time in a better environment. And I think that's what we have to try to provide. And that's the culture we want to try to create.
It's funny you mentioned the selection process. That was actually a huge topic, not only for USA Hockey, but also, the Swedish model. We were specifically talking about what's called biobanding. And I don't want to bore the audience with the science behind it, but essentially, in Europe, there is a notion of putting teams together based on the biological age of the players. So you could have a group of 120 14-year-olds, but you may have them at different stages in their physical and mental development. And so it was probably the most controversial topic amongst the coaches and administrators, but getting these families to try to align their children based on the biological age versus the birth year or the birth date. And New England actually did this within, I believe, the 14U. They had 120 families agree to go through this. And what they did is they left their club team for 2 months and practiced and played with other kids who fit within that maturation from other clubs.
Nice.
And what they saw is 100% of the kids came back next year. So it was really, really interesting. I would just say, is there any chance of getting, a midget A2 division? We've got the AA, we have the A1, and we see a lot of these programs have multiple AA. And I think some of that might be more driven by, I want to be a AA midget player.
No, I like your idea though of applying that. I feel like we're a vessel. We're communicating a message, and as we pick up good bits of information, How can we promote that and share that? I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Taking an A2 league. Look, we can call it whatever we want, A2, B, C, whatever. But the point is putting these kids together that are going through similar challenges. Let's not even talk about the physical piece, just the mental piece. Right around that age, 14, 8th, 9th grade, maybe 7th grade for some kids, but mostly 8th, 9th. And then some of them are growing and some that aren't. And
aren't yet.
Yeah. And empathy that comes with that. I think if you do that, then you got to immediately set the expectation with those parents, because that's going to be the challenging thing. The takeaway I came away with, let's not put the score on the scoreboard until 11U, is, can you imagine telling the parents that? But our parents in the USA model have grown up with a scoreboard from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so setting that expectation right at the get-go, we're going to put kids together. Some have grown, some haven't. But the bio-banding term that you used for those purposes. And I love that there's a study that validated it, and all the kids came back. So that tells me that it was fun.
Yeah. Because
Bob Mancini's listening out there somewhere. And what worked about that is it started with fun.
Well, I think we've got the two halves of the show here, and Chris is also a level 5 coach, and I think we could really dive into. That's right. He's a Jedi master.
Twice.
Yes. Let's dive into some of the player coaching development in the second half. Bringing it back to the upcoming season. I know that there's some rule changes that are happening. I know that there's a coaching initiative being spearheaded by Missouri Hockey and the Blues. So let's dive into that, and let's talk a little bit about what you're excited for the upcoming season, and what coaches, players, and parents need to be aware of.
Yeah, so the rule changes, those were all passed at the last USA Hockey meetings, and the primary, one that you're going to notice is at 15U and above, kids can ice the puck on the penalty kill now, and they'll have delayed offsides. And so delayed offsides. Funny story about that. I was watching, and this was probably right after they passed the new rules the previous time.
Yeah.
It was a Vianney High School game I was at, and it was a kid that had played midget hockey at it for a club team, and he ended up, it was an icing on a penalty kill in a high school game, and he didn't go back on the puck. and the high school rules were different.
Yep.
So the other team's player beat him to the puck, ended up scoring a goal, and it was just one of those things. So I'm glad that the kids won't have to transfer from one set of rules to another in the middle of
coaches and officials
week
too.
Even.
I mean, sometimes at night. I mean, I know from coaching club and high school, and having kids that play both, that happens more often than not. And, I mean, I understood when the changes were made, kind of what the thought process was behind it. It was to, let's get rid of some of the lazy plays. Let's try and create some more offense. Let's, penalize, when you're on the power play, if you're not able to maintain control and possession. But at the same time, you're going to have, that goes away, and it's good to do that at the 12U level and the 10U level. But once you get into when hockey really starts to look more like what you see on TV, kind of, let's make sure we're adapting our strategy. So that's is there any type of messaging with the officials, with MIHOA, getting this out to make sure that we're really clear on that?
So the officials will have to go through, training and updates and rule updates and things like that. And they're probably most in that process right now.
Yep.
And I think there's a cycle to all this stuff, like all those rule changes happened about 15 years ago, and they came back. So, people get ideas and change things, and then they change them back. And, so it's just one of those things.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, from a coaching standpoint. I think you and I, we pre-flighted the show about some cool things that are going to go on with the Blues and with USA Hockey and Missouri Hockey about, getting our coaches educated and going through the CEP process. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so most coaches that have level 4 or level 5 are required to get continuing education credits by the end of this year, by December 31st. Also, if you're a level 1, you have to get your level 2, that kind of thing. And so what we are trying to do, and we're still coordinating dates and things like that, is work together with the Blues and work together with USA Hockey to do an in-person coaching clinic where level ones could get their level 2. Anybody could get their continuing education credits, maybe level 2s get their level 3 as well. It'd be in person, kind of a half day kind of thing. And I think one of the things USA Hockey does really well is the coaching clinics. The level 5 is the best one because it's in person.
Yeah.
I personally enjoyed back in the day when we
level
had
4 used to be.
when we had in
get on
person.
the ice.
Yeah, level 4s,
Yeah.
level 3s were even in person.
Yeah.
We'd rent out auditoriums and get everybody together. And I think we miss a little bit of that with the online platform. And so been talking to Dan Jablonic and the people at USA Hockey to get them here. They came in April. We did a leadership symposium, which I was really proud of, really excited about. We had John O'Sullivan, who I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he's with the Changing the Game project and has his own podcast and whatnot. He came in and talked to. We tried to gear it towards club presidents, coaching directors, and people that are on our boards. So that'd be like the Mid States board, the Mo Hockey board, and the Youth Division board. And I think it was a really good event that we held in conjunction with the Frozen Four. So we'll probably try to do something like that again here coming up either this season or next.
How are we engaging with our clubs? We talk about, the rule changes. We talk about the CEP and the continue education. Just in general, I know there's so much work that goes into scheduling. There's so much work that a lot of these volunteer boards are saddled with to provide a phenomenal experience or to aspire to that. What are some things that Missouri Hockey is doing to help at the organizational level? And then aside from like the end of season central districting and those teams that we put together, what are we doing to put tools and resources out there for coaches and players?
Sure. I think, Scott Smith is the president of the youth division, and he does a great job there at the beginning of the season to get really every team is required to attend a Zoom call and to kick off the season. We provide rule updates during those events, discipline, presentations, things that kind of get everyone kind of geared up towards the season. So those usually happen in September, and then the declaration season usually kicks off right after that. So I think that the youth division helps mostly with the resources for the youth clubs, and then is kind of set up is we have different divisions. So we have kind of high school with 2 different leagues, one in Illinois, one in Missouri. We have the youth division, and then we have a women's director and an adult director. And so we try to kind of let them stay in their little silos a little bit to a certain extent with regard to those resources.
Well, quick pause here. This segment of Too Many Men on the Mic is brought to you by Big Bear Tournaments, your go-to for unforgettable youth hockey travel experiences. Big Bear hosts spectacular tournaments in some of the coolest hockey towns across North America. Our tournaments are filling faster than ever, so act quick or risk missing out. We bring the highest value and best competitive experience for all age groups, longer periods, incredible destinations, and some of the best championship awards you can find. In honor of Missouri Hockey President Chris Durso being on the show, thank you, we would like to offer the President's discount of $500 for all out-of-town tournament registrations now through Friday. Register on our site and mention Too Many Men on the application to qualify. Ask about our club discount as well to save thousands of dollars on registration for multiple teams. Many clubs have already taken advantage. Whether you're playing in St. Louis, Springfield, Kansas City, Chicago, or Appleton, Madison, and Louisville, Big Bear has you covered.
Hot Take Central 2.0.
a partnership. That's eyesightmediagroup.com.
Back to more of Too Many Men on the Mic with Jared Balint and Drew Acree on the Lou Information Station. Streaming 24/7 at louinfo.com.
And we are back. Too Many Men on the Mic. You can find us at louinfo.com, or if you're tooling around town, find us on your radio dial, AM 590 KLIS. This half of Too Many Men on the Mic is brought to you by 5B Designs. St. Louis hockey families and business leaders. If you need custom gear that stands out and stands for something, it's time to meet 5B Designs. Founded by Shannon Berhini, a proud St. Louis mom and entrepreneur, 5B Designs is a woman-owned small business that brings purpose to custom apparel. Whether you're suiting up your youth or high school hockey team or leveling up your company's branded swag, 5B delivers top-notch quality with a personal touch. If you need a team store, not a problem. Corporate polos or event giveaways, they got you covered. 5B makes it easy with fast turnaround, flexible service, and designs your players or employees will love to wear. Check them out at stores.inksoft.com/5B Designs. That's the word 5, and see what purpose-driven apparel looks like. Well, we're back here again, joined with Chris Durso, president of Missouri Hockey. And I think this half of the show, we're going to pivot to some development pieces. And specifically, let's talk a little bit about the officials. Read some statistics that, don't necessarily, they're not great statistics when you talk about some of the game reports and game misconducts that are occurring. And, not to brag that I was at level 5 last week, but at level 5 last week, we talked a lot about officials. In fact, it was the first breakout session that I had the pleasure to attend. And a couple of statistics really stood out to me. There's 3 of them, actually. Our official, the number of officials that we have right now has actually grown. So the aggregate number has actually been growing.
Thank goodness.
Here's the challenge to everyone involved, but specifically coaches and parents. 50% of those officials have less than 5 years of experience.
Ouch.
And 40% of those officials total are under the age of 18.
Well, that's good on the one hand, because that's the future of youth hockey, right? Those 40%, you hope those kids, young men, stay with it and then become senior level officials and have more than 5 years of experience. So happy to hear that it's growing. But I'm like you. I saw the statistic that abuse of officials and zero tolerance reports are up to go along with it. So that's something to dig into there, Chris.
Yeah. So Missouri Hockey is responsible for handling all those disciplinary issues that happen within our confines. And over the last, I had to send out an email a couple years ago to everybody that was a member, just kind of reminding them, like, hey, officials are part of the game. Last year, we had a record number of games, over 11,000 games. Our officials association does a great job getting all those games covered. I think we had 550 plus officials registered in our in Missouri Hockey last year. We have a couple initiatives to try to prevent some of these things. So one of the ideas that we're floating and probably will implement is the green armbands for younger officials that are under 16. And so one of the things with that is if you get a bench minor for abusive officials or some other misconduct penalty, it'll penalize the person double. So a bench minor would have been 2 minutes. It'll be 4 if it's with an official that has a green armband. If it's a game misconduct, it'll be 2 games, that kind of thing. So we're looking to be creative with things like that to hopefully cut down on the amount of abuse that our younger officials get from coaches and players. And then the issues in the stands as well, just trying to educate parents that we need these officials. So if our game count keeps growing and we keep losing younger officials, eventually some of the older officials are going to retire and your games might not get covered. So we want to make sure that we're doing right in that aspect.
One of the things that, and look, as a coach, I'm not perfect. And I'm not going to sit up here and pontificate and be hypocritical and say that I haven't got into an argument with an official. But one of the things that really gave me pause, I've gotten to know officials and coached with some officials and played hockey with some officials, is the body language that a coach presents is that will start you off on the wrong foot. And remember, some of these officials are players and coaches themselves, and we're all humans. You get kind of that, hey, we're all in that competitive mode. And so, I've really tried to focus on you catch more flies with honey, and that's an ism.
That is an ism.
And getting down from the bench, getting down to the ice level, talking to them and not really, and asking them, hey, frame it in the standpoint of how can I coach my player better next time? I want to be able to deliver that message. I think that is something that we've got to do a much better job of.
Well, and just an observation, in Nashville, we had one of our crews was a really good ref crew, and I love seeing when officials do this. They take a player off the ice, kid goes and sits in the box, and they poke their head in, and they talk to them, and they explain why they made the call they did. So I agree with you, Jared. I think for coaching it's helpful, but what I absolutely love is when they focus on the player and they say, let me explain why I called that. And that to me is a sign of a really good ref, that they're taking the time to come over, make sure that the player understands why they made the call that they did. And so as these refs that have 5 years or less experience grow more and more, my hope is that with more experience, they'll take that experience and then go over and consult with those kids, because that's a great thing to see in the game of youth hockey, from my opinion.
And to your point there, another thing that we have going on is we applied for a grant from USA Hockey to do coaching on the official side. So we get older officials coaching younger officials.
Nice.
Before and after, and even during games. And so there's some programming that we'll have hopefully rolled out this season for that.
I can tell you that even when we talked to Bob Mancini initially, not even on the air, he was very passionate about the officials are that third leg of the stool when it comes to the game. And, they recognize that officials aren't perfect either, but no one's out there trying to become a millionaire officiating youth hockey. And I think if you just take a breath, you keep things in perspective as a coach, player, and as a parent. We don't need any Department of Public Safety called out to any rinks anytime soon this year, although that does happen. Leverage it as a teaching moment. Even as a teaching moment, and this was mentioned at the symposium, was understanding how the game's going to be called. I mean,
yes,
that's
huge, because that becomes a decision point in the game. I'm not going to mention refs' names, but I have been in a game before where maybe there wasn't consistency, and then I'm sure both of you have been part of this. Then ultimately the kids start taking the game in their own hands. And then I start going over and having a conversation with the officials and saying, look, I can feel where this is going. If we don't contain this, then the players are going to take over this game, and then it could potentially get ugly. So consistency, I think that's a great thing to bring in. Look, if we're going to call everything, great. If we're going to let them play. But where I've seen officiating get into some more risky kind of situations in games is when we are consistent, and then the players then suddenly drive that bus.
Yeah, the standard has to be the standard.
Yeah, agreed. And, the last thing I'll say on this is there's only got to be one voice from the bench. And, oftentimes we're parent coaches. And so you'll have moms and dads who are friends, and maybe you'll have a person who's an assistant coach who sees something and makes the comment. I think the culture of all teams, whether you're co-head coaches or whether you're going to rotate every game as a head coach, there has to be only one voice, because nothing will get you an extra bench minor than having
multiple people.
The term I heard was officials hate stereo.
That's
good. And that's a good
I
one.
Love that. That's a greatism.
So be kind, and it's an hour of out there having fun. Don't make it into a week's worth of not being able to play hockey by doing something that's not appropriate.
Well said.
I think keeping everything in perspective is important.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, let's pivot a little bit, because I do want to touch on this. I thought it was such a cool thing, and some of the information, Chris, that we were sharing back and forth. Missouri Hockey's commitment to disabled hockey. And you guys made a pretty substantial investment into this area of the game. Can you share some of the details behind that?
Yeah. So in 2023, Missouri Hockey hosted the USA Hockey Disabled Festival. And as a result of that, we had some financial ramifications for our affiliate. And those funds that we generated as a result of that event are earmarked for developing and growing our disabled disciplines. So that would be sled hockey, blind hockey, blues special hockey, blues warrior hockey, all the programming that we have within the affiliate for disabled athletes. And so it was 2024 is when we dedicated the funds, but we were able to supply $30,000 to three different, $10,000 for each one, three different disabled disciplines to help them grow their programming. So I'm excited to see what the results of that funding lead to. I want to see growth in those disciplines, and I think we're on track to do that.
I love it, and I'll tell you, one of the things I absolutely love is walking into a rink and watching those games go on. I mean, you can't take your eyes off of it. And I feel like, at least here in the local area where we're based in St. Louis, a lot of that stuff is happening over the summertime is usually when I'm seeing it. But that's fantastic. What great support around an area of our game that I think probably doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the most moving things. When I went up to the Disabled Festival when it was here, and it's something you get emotional just like watching it, because you get inspired. So
yeah.
I know that Centene has hosted some special hockey. Certainly we have special blues. I have not had a chance to see a sled hockey game in person.
You should watch it. It's really cool.
And we actually talked about this last weekend. There I go again. The amount of compete and skill, and just somebody made the comment, try and get on one of those sleds and play hockey. It's impossible. But I would love to be able to get to a point here in St. Louis where we have the population that we're either hosting in-town tournaments or we have a team that travels. What's the prospectus on that?
So the DASA program is the sled hockey program, and they definitely have events that they host. I don't have all the details off the top of my head for all the programming they have. I know they had a program in Wentzville. I think it was a couple weeks ago, or it might be coming up still, where you could try sled hockey for free. So I think doing programs like that is a good way to, I mean, like you said, get an able-bodied athlete out on one of those sleds, and they have a lot of difficulty. So
it's impossible, from what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, I look, if we had a group of kids that maybe wanted to work more at 50-50 battles, right? Boy, I would take them out there.
Upper body strength.
And just let them watch these men and women who are competing and don't have the facilities you do, and look how competitive and how much they want to go after that. Actually, I'm thinking that might be a future trip for a hockey team here.
Well, I think it's something not just for us and our show to kind of get more involved in. I think it's an opportunity too. I'd love to be able to go back to some of the clubs and talk to them. And I think people beyond just the sled hockey, but the special blues program, I think parents and players sometimes have this notion in their head where there's some stigmatism around it, and like being able to normalize that's what's going to grow this game. And I'm sure the Blues and the NHL see that as future customers, and so how we operate within that environment, I think, is going to be say an awful lot as to how this game continues to grow. And we just won the World Sled Hockey Championships. So, I mean, USA's got, I think, 6 golds in the last 12 months, and one of them is the sled hockey team.
Let's go.
Yep. We got a few minutes left here. I think 11 minutes. Grant. Yeah. Thanks, Grant. Thanks for helping out. Appreciate that.
Grant's awfully quiet today. He was, he hasn't chimed in and given you any zingers today.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to?
I mean, you're supposed to let us know what's going on.
You said we have a few minutes left.
You're wrangling the show.
Well, what time do we get out of normally?
I mean, that clock.
There it is.
That clock's not always right.
I'll tell you this, that clock It's perfect. To the second, possibly to the millisecond.
Good job, Grant.
Once again, we gave this guy Mike. Let's talk a little bit about player development. Let's put our coaches' hats back on. We've got some time here. I was really, you talked about the things that I brought back from the symposium, and I think the biggest one was creating an environment where decision making becomes quicker.
Yeah, so I guess I'm curious on that, and I'm sure you probably got examples and things, but pulling that thread, as a youth hockey coach, what can I do to take drills that I have out there, and they may be some really good ones, and then help drive that quicker decision making? Where's a place to start if I'm a youth hockey coach and I want to accelerate that decision making?
So let's talk a minute here about what goes into making a decision on a sheet of ice. The first thing is you have to have skill acquisition. The one thing that we see from young players or novice players, not necessarily young, could be adults that are first starting off with hockey. The first thing they're doing is what? They're looking down at the puck.
Yeah, they're looking down.
So there's a couple things around that. The one thing, our friend Adam Oates, who hopefully we get on this show someday, can talk about getting the right fit for your stick. A stick, the way your stick fits in your hand and the lie on the ice and the length of it is a direct correlation to, one, your decision-making ability, because you know where that puck is, and two, keeping your head up and not getting concussions.
You're doing a great job on a pitch here for Adam Oates for a future show.
Well, I might have ran into somebody who knows him.
Love it.
Constraint-led approach. As you're talking about your games, one of the things that that really struck me is that, it's called sense-based teaching. And Chris has probably heard this. In the NHL, using your senses, vision, hearing, and then your touch, NHL players are using their vision 70% of the time. They're using their ears and their auditory 20% of the time. And the actual, hey, I feel this guy coming on behind me 10% of the time. In youth hockey, it's 70% vision, same as in the NHL, 10% auditory, and 20% sense. So one of the things is you got to talk more.
Right.
And there's a term that's being utilized heavily in USA Hockey called scanning. And it's exactly what it sounds like, getting your head up and scanning. So one of the things we had actually a Russian hockey coach who's also a statistician. He compiled thousands of practice and game videos across all levels. And what he noticed is that the best teams are the ones whose heads are constantly up, looking in the lanes and constantly moving. And one of the drills that we talked about is you have a 5-on-0 dump, retrieve, breakout, regroup in the neutral zone. Second time you go in, add a single defensive player. So it's 5-on-1.
Yep.
5-on-1, you probably can get away with looking down.
Right.
Most people are 4 out of, there's a good chance.
Yeah, I better be able to beat a guy on 5-on-1.
Next time you do it, 5-on-2.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, players got to get their heads up. 5-on-3, 5-on-4. Next thing, it's this progression of getting players to have their heads up through that whole process. And it's a flow drill. There's not a lot of compete there. It's really kind of a get you ready, get your juices flowing before the practice and the games and more concepts. But observe, orient, decide, act. That is really what, I think as coaches, we have to be very critical of the drills and the games. And look, we all have, I call them table hockey drills, where we're staying in these lanes and everybody knows where they're going and they could probably do it blindfold. I might be guilty of having some of those drills. I know you are, but what do you think, Chris? I mean, from that standpoint, what are some things that you as a coach, a high level coach, has put in front of your players?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's about information gathering, and that's what scanning is. And I think, just generally in life, humans make better decisions when they have more information. And so what I try to do is just little things like if I'm doing a little retrieval drill with the defenseman, like I want them, like whoever they're passing to, I want to know what hand they are. I want them to be able to okay, I'm passing to a left-handed guy. I'm passing to a right-handed guy. So I want them to take in specific information about the situation as they're doing the drill. And then maybe it's a coach standing over in a different area with hands up and then okay, how many fingers did he have? Was he holding up? So they're actually taking in some specific information that as opposed to entertaining me with a shoulder check or something.
I love that because that's such a very specific detail, the handedness of a player. And so as you're coaching that, I imagine then that you're out there with the kids and you're walking through the drill. And then is that your last point in the drill? Oh, and by the way, if you're back retrieving the puck, make sure you realize, make sure you're paying attention who your wingers are, what handed they are, maybe even your center.
Usually
if you're going to center breakout.
So with a new team, obviously you're trying to get the drill so they understand the drill. And then usually I'll stop it, bring them in. I'll be like, okay, now we have the drill down. Now let's like focus in.
Yep.
Is this guy right-handed? Is he left-handed?
Okay, so you don't you're not selling it first time around. You're letting them go through a couple reps, and then you bring them back, regroup, and then add that element to it.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking,
usually the passing gets better.
Well, and so that's such a detail thing. I don't know if this is a right or wrong approach. I'm a defenseman, so of course I nerd out on defensive kind of tactics and things. But I've always thought pinching around D, knowing when to pinch, is ultimately a math exercise. And so I've thought, is it fair for me as a coach to expect the defenseman to look at that as a math exercise? And what I mean is, if you have another player that's on the wall and you're that second player that's coming in to pinch, so suddenly you have a 2-on-1, right? Your math wins every time.
Math's undefeated.
That math's undefeated. That's a Jaredism. So I guess what I'm understanding, what I'm trying to get my arms around is when is it fair to begin asking for that level of detail in your experience, Chris? When did that start? Is it fair to ask an 8-year-old to do it? Is it fair to ask a 10 or 12-year-old? Where do you see that?
I think to Jared's point, they have to have the physical skills to be able to do the thing.
Right.
And then I think after that is when the information gathering starts, and then you start making better decisions and that kind of stuff. So I would say 13, 14.
Okay.
About the time the Swedes start to keep in score. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I don't think there's anything wrong though with asking an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, hey, what hand did it? Like, it was funny because I was listening to this NHL player on a podcast that will remain nameless. He knew the hand of every teammate. He knew what every one of his teammates, what hand they were. And think about that. If you're a left-hander playing on the right side defense, you get caught over there,
right,
and you're trying to angle somebody out. Should you have two hands on the stick? Should you have one? These are the types of things that, as a coach, it's your job to ask those questions and get the thought process going. But, we're getting a little short on time here. Chris, thank you for joining us today.
I love what you guys are doing. This is awesome.
Yeah, we definitely will have you back on again. I think the biggest thing to leave with all coaches, players, and parents out there is really learn, play, fail, and that'll lead to the fun. That really will. That last part, that fail part, I can't emphasize that enough. Don't be afraid to fail. That's when you have fun, and that's how you learn. So, if you're listening to us here on luinfo.com or AM 590, stick around and listen to In Your City with Kelly and Gordon. Thanks for listening, everybody. Too Many Men on the Mic. Coach Drew, Coach Chris.
See you next week.
See you next week.